Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And today we're actually getting into a little, I guess you could say, just a little breakdown of starting your own business. It's not very detailed because, to be honest with you, I'm not a super expert and I like to keep it real with you guys. But at the same time, too, I know a little something. And one thing I really love on this channel is giving the average person that beginning phase, not the complex aspect of things when it comes to, you know, somebody having this whole long drawn out thing where they tell you, yeah, I'm going to show you how to create your own business. And I'm just referring to in this topic here, just the labeling, you getting the title of your business, turning it into LLC, getting your paperwork and those kind of things, not necessarily the idea to create your business, but whatever business you have, making it official. And continue on what I was saying. I'm not those guys out there who say to you, "This is how you do things in X, Y, and Z," and it's so complicated, it's over the top. I don't. I'm not going to try to sell it to you like that because I don't like the idea of things being complicated for the average person. So the first thing we're going to get into is creating your business name. If you have an idea of a business name, whether you're a content creator, maybe you sell something, this and that, you want to create a name, and maybe you have a name for your business in your own mind. You say, "Cool, like this is what I want my business to be." First thing I would suggest to you is this: get yourself a email that is dedicated to that business. Try to have, like, if you can, make it something that doesn't have numbers associated with it if you can, because I personally think that looks better. But if you have to have numbers, make sure the numbers mean something. They're not just generic numbers, Jimmy's, whatever company, 567 3599, whatever, some random numbers. Don't do that. If your name Jimmy, just for an example, and it's your company, your building company, Jimmy's Building Company, and maybe if you have to have numbers on it, try to have the numbers have, like I said, have some kind of meaning to it. But if not, try to figure out a title in which, um, for your email, where it doesn't need to have numbers at all. So if you put Jimmy's, building company, Jimmy's Building Company, and okay, that's taken in terms of the email that you're looking for. Well, then from there, put maybe, you know, the the Jimmy's Building Company or something like that. You get the idea. Play around with the words, figure out something. So you got to have the email. Obviously, most people go with Gmail these days because now it's probably considered the most professional number one email to have, and rightfully so. It's connected with a lot of things, YouTube, other different types of social media. So that's a good look. But obviously, choose whatever one you feel comfortable with. Now, with that being said, and on top of that too, I'm sorry, just to backtrack, Gmail is one of those companies that, being that it's connected with a lot of things, a lot of times you can use that one to get you into, your Facebook, if you do YouTube, if you do, I think TikTok will use that as well. I'm not really too sure, and other various ones. So it kind of keeps things all connected, and obviously you have other benefits like, I think it's called Google Meet or something like that, like their meeting program, things of that sort. So it really keeps things all connected. So I probably would suggest that. Most people in the world obviously are using Gmail now, but if you want to use something else, then that's fine. Now, next in line is you taking that business name that you have, and like I said, you want to have the email associated with it, but they're your business name, and whatever your business name is, and getting it official to where, in the law, in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of business, it's an official name, and it gets labeled as a LLC, which gives you many benefits, and I'm going to mention that in a moment. You can go to such websites as, you can Google these. I'm going to read these off and I'll tell you if they have a space in between them or not. But if they don't have a space, then I'm going to tell you it doesn't have a space in between it. If it does have a space, I'm just going to read it as normal. You will know that it has a space by its two separate words. But a couple of websites that you can go to file to have your business name created and then get LLC, and you'll end up having official documents created for it, is called, um, there's one, I'm sorry, it's called, there's one called Zen Business with no space in between, Legal Zoom with no space in between, Taylor Brands, Northwest Registered Agent, Inc File, and that has no space in between. It's like Inc, like INC file. And then another one is Inc Space Authority. So that's just a couple of suggestions. You can find other ones. I'm not representing any of these kind of brands, but those right there are, you know, I'll throw some links in the description for you to go to those and check out. I'll probably have some of them on there. But like I said, you can Google them if you need. And that's where you'll go to essentially have your business name. So if we're continuing off that same example we said, Jimmy's, buildings, Jimmy's, what did I say? Building, Jimmy's construction, whatever. We're just gonna call it construction. Jimmy's construction. Then you would go there, create that title, Jimmy's Construction, and now that's your LLC. So now it's Jimmy's Construction LLC. You're going to get documentation that's along with it. And then from there, um, a little side note before we go to your next task that you would have to do along with it, which is getting something called an EIN number, which is also known as the Employer Identification Number. And it's kind of like your social security number for your business rather than you using your own personal social security number. So that way you're not directly attached to um, the business in the regards of like if someone had a problem with it, they look up your social security number and it's you. The business is its own separate entity away from you. But before I get into that and that process and doing that, when you go to one of these sites, you're gonna basically pay to get your name, your title, and the LLC attached to your name of your company. There's gonna be a point where they're gonna ask for if you want, for lack of a better word, and if you need to like call someone or look it up to kind of find out better so you understand it. It's almost like business management or legal representative or agent. And there's a section where they'll ask you, do you want to pay for that in addition? You could skip that, and that way you save some money. And essentially, what that is almost like an online entity who represents as an agent for you. So essentially, like I said, I'm not an expert on it, so look it up to get better detail. But my general understanding of it is you don't need to do it, especially if you're a small time business. You don't need to do it. But essentially, what it is say if your business is going to get sued or something's going to happen based on some kind of legal ramification, that person acts as this kind of general. It's a company that will, like with any of these companies, you can buy it. It's one of their features, you could say, with any of the companies I just mentioned. And essentially what it is they'll now represent you in terms of being that middleman who receives, like say if you have like someone makes a law claim against you or files something against you or whatever the case is, or they're trying to track you down, they send, trying to get mail to your business to let you notify you that they have some issue with something or whatever it is. They'll go through that middleman first as a kind of almost like virtual representative. They're a real entity, a company, but I say virtual because you're just dealing with them online and they're not like really this physical person you're going to go see and meet. You're paying for the services in one of those companies, whether it's LegalZoom, Zen Business, or any of them, Incfile. They will now be that representative in front of you to kind of absorb what it is and then translate it to you later on at a later point in time. You don't need that and it's not required, especially if you're very small time. You're doing something like selling little products, maybe on eBay or on Amazon, or maybe you do video content or whatever the case is. You're rarely going to run into anything like that. And you can always add it on later. So I would tell you, you could skip it if you need to. Now, the EIN number, as I just mentioned a moment ago, um, which is the employee identification number. And I'm just going to say it as the EIN number from this point on. That number, like I said before, is your representation or social security number of the business, meaning it's how the business is identified and it's how the business, is associated in regards to taxes and getting its income and this and that, rather than you personally being the person who's generating income and then going off your social security number. So essentially, for layman's terms, it's like if they look you up, it's going to say you're making money off your social security number off this business. If you have an EIN number, then it's like they can't look you up and see you're making money off the business. It means the business has its own identity separate from you and is making money. And the reason why that's important is why you're doing this whole business thing in the first place is because you want to reflect that um, you want it to reflect that you are a separate entity. Or so if someone came after your business, they aren't coming after you personally, which is what a lot of people in the business world do. And they use business as a front to avoid having problems. Or when a person who's rich and they're rich says, I'm bankrupt, sometimes they're just saying their business is bankrupt, but not them personally. Or sometimes vice versa. They'll say, I'm bankrupt personally, but I'm part of a business and you can't touch the business because the business is not me. And so it's a separate entity that you're benefiting from, but it's not able to be attacked by anyone coming after you for legal reasons, whether it's they're trying to sue you or maybe you're going through a divorce or whatever the case is. That's a separate entity that can't be touched. And I very much recommend that everybody, men and women, but for all those men out there that are go getters, because obviously this channel caters a little bit more to men, obviously, but this applies to women as well. Early in your life, in your 20s, if you can, but if your 40s, your 50s, whatever age you are, you're in your 30s, it doesn't matter. Get on the mindset of turning everything into an LLC. It's just as simple as the way I'm walking through these steps with you right now. Turn everything into an LLC. That way it's untouchable by other people. One, that's one. Two, you can write off a lot of things, and I'm going to get into that in a moment. And three, is there a three? It's just better for you because overall, it just really makes your life easier in terms of protecting yourself, writing things off, and avoiding certain taxes, and just allowing you to kind of really function in the world. Because the truth is, one thing that higher in economic America understands is that nobody in that world, in the high end, the upper class of economics, deals without having a business title on everything. So you just need to know how those people make it in the world, where they're avoiding certain taxes and getting by and everything. Everything is associated with a business. That is being part of the upper class, is having your own business, regardless how small it is, because it gives you a lot of advantages. And I'm going to inform you on what some of those advantages are. Now, um, next is, like we mentioned, skipping that part about getting the legal representation if you don't need it at this phase right now in the beginning, but you can have it later. Next is getting that EIN number. Now, the way you go that is after you establish your business, you take the information you just got from one of these websites establishing your LLC. You're going to go to the IRS website, IRS. Google it. I think it's irs.gov, but I'm not 100% sure. And so you'll go there and just type in IRS, Google IRS EIN number, and it should take you directly to the page for you to, start up EIN. And I will try to throw a link in the description for that if I can. If I'm not able to get it, then just Google it, but I will try to have that link in the description. Now, when you go to the website and you put that in, it's going to pretty much walk you through it. What you're simply doing is registering the EIN number to your new LLC business. And the reason why that's important is, like I said, it gives your business a financial connection to the business world. So now with that number, you can take that number with your business name and you can now go to a bank. Now, I'm going to get into that in a moment. Before I do, I want to also suggest to you um, getting you don't need this in the beginning. You could use your regular home address as your business address, but just know whenever someone looks at the business address, it's going to be associated with your home. So you want to sometimes be careful with that. If your business is small, it's not a problem. If your business starts getting bigger, you want that um, in terms of anonymity. Sorry if I'm butchering the word, but you want that in terms of not having to worry about that, someone can identify you, or that, like I said, the purpose of creating a business in an LLC is that you're not held accountable. In addition to that, means that you can't have too much tying back to you as well, because then it's easy for them to find out that you're the one who is behind it all. So maybe you can't get rid of that in the beginning. You got to use your home address, but then later on, you can move over to having what's known as a virtual business address. And you can Google virtual business address and you'll see a couple of things pop up. I'm not going to throw a link in the description on that because I'm really not too familiar with all the different type of companies and I don't want to lead you in the wrong way. But just know you can look it up, do your research on that. And essentially, well, I will throw a link in the description for one that I had just recently researched, but I don't know too much on it. So I really heavily advise that you do your research on it. But essentially what that is it's almost the equivalent of a PO box, but most companies don't use a PO box for these kind of businesses. They won't let you to. They'll say, put your address and don't put a PO box. So what the virtual business address is giving you a physical address that some office or some company maintains inside wherever, some city, maybe probably your local big city that's near you, if it's a town away or not. And it will be in some big office building that probably it uses that location for bunch of people who's saying, this is my address. So imagine almost the equivalent of a building that has a bunch of offices in it. And one of those offices is yours. But instead of you actually having a physical office, you're just considered part of that space, but you don't physically have a space there. And what that does is it allows you to have an address based off business. It's a legit concept. So don't think that it's like some shady building that no one stays there. And it's like, well, I have my stuff being sent here. It's for the purpose of just having a location for your business, a storefront. But you might then say, well, my mailing address is as so, and you would have your mailing address be maybe be your home or a PO box or this and that. But the business address for record will be that location. So a lot of times that'll cost something like maybe like $10 a month or something like $20 a month or something in that range. But essentially, the purpose of it is just for you to establish an official location that's away from your home that you are protected from and is not connected with your actual residence because you cannot use a PO box. So essentially, it's like saying using a PO box, but they officially don't let you use a PO box. So that's essentially what it is. Um, Now, going into what I was going to jump into as far as the bank goes. Now, so the next step process, you going to your local bank, whichever one you want to go to, any bank that works for you. But I would say the bigger banks offer more options. The smaller banks will probably cost less to get into because, things like maintaining a checking account, or it's the same for your business account. So I'm just going to refer to it as a checking account. When I say checking account, I'm referring to the business checking account. When you have a checking account, you obviously know they're going to say there has to be a minimum amount of money in there for you to maintain it. So you sometimes can get around those type of things or what the minimum requirement amount is based on how big the bank is. Some smaller banks don't require much. I've heard some that require you just to have $100 in the account and you're good. And then other ones that might say things like you need $2,000 in the account to be good at all times because certain banks are bigger and certain banks are smaller. But with that being said, shop around, figure out the one that's best for you. I'm going to tell you some of the benefits that can come along with them, but each bank is going to be different. Essentially, what you could do is if your credit is decent, you could apply not only for the checking account, but you apply for the credit card, a business credit card. And if I say any kind of label like credit card or checking account, just know it's always entitled with business in front of it because it's all the business version. And every bank has a separate category for a business version versus a regular version or personal version. So the business credit card will give you a lot more benefit and perks to it, more so than your regular standard credit card, more reward points back for common things, even like getting gas, grocery shopping, all these kind of things are better. The only thing that may be lacking, and each card might be different, is maybe vacation points are not as big, but all the standard things you would do, you get a lot more rewards, return points on because they know you're using this business card for everyday business. Maybe you have a company car and you're driving around, so gas mileage puts on it. Food, because maybe you're going to restaurants to eat, because as the business, you guys got to go out to eat or whatever. So all those things you get a lot of points on when you have a business credit card. That goes hand in hand with that goes hand in hand with you having the checking account. Now, the checking account is obviously going to be where you have a business and where your money is going to go to. Your money is going to go to the checking account from the products that you sell or whatever the case is. And that establishes that checking account is separate from your own personal account. But in addition, um, when it comes to writing things off. Now, anything inside your business that you can write off, you can literally say, whatever I use my credit card for, I write everything on that off, or whatever, I pay bills with from the checking account, the business checking account. I'm writing that off later on at the end of the year. And depending on what your business is, it can be validated that you're writing it off. But the truth is, you can actually write off almost anything, meals, haircuts, this and that, because it's all part of things you have to do at your business, grooming, this and that. Some people write off cars. They buy a new car and they write it off because they say the business needed a car for traveling to and from work or this and that. It's not a personal thing. You count it as a business expense and you can write all this off. So this is how a lot of people get around like, tax returns and this and that and having all that money back because they write off every little thing inside their life. They write off their meals. They write off their grooming. They write off everything. Some of them, if you're using your home address as your business address because you just started off and you say, I operate my business out of my home address, you talk to your tax guy, and it's all going to come down to your tax guy and make sure you have a good tax guy at the end of the year. But they're going to be able to write off the expenses of your home where you're staying at. Even if it's an apartment, you're paying rent, you still could write that off because you're like, this is my business location. And yeah, I pay rent, but I pay rent for my business. And at that point, you're writing off your rent. So I say that to say that, this is how people do it. And they write a lot of things off. So the business account is the final aspect of this, little talk that we're getting into in terms of creating a business. But understand that that's definitely something that you want to do at that point. You link everything to the business that you can, even your phone expenses. I have to use my phone calls, and whatever the case is, especially if maybe you do video content and you use your phone for that, or maybe you have a camera, whatever the case, it doesn't matter. But you write everything off, and you go, cool. My phone bill is part of that because I got to be using the internet. My cable bill is part of that. I'm writing that off to you. Essentially write off everything. You essentially write off everything. You speak to your cable. You'd speak to your tax guy, but he'll let you know. You pretty much are able to almost write off everything if you have a business account. Most people don't have a business account, so there's a lot of things you can't write off. But once you're into the realm of business, you can write off almost anything, all your basic expenses. You just tack them over to your, part of your business, tying them into your expense. So your eating, your grooming, your travel, all that gets tacked into the business. And since you're operating from your home or where you're staying, that now becomes everything associated with your lifestyle is your business. So I'm just hammering that to you just so you understand that's how big of a deal it is and how much you could write off. In addition, a lot of those business credit cards give you a lot of rewards, like I say. So you paying your regular bills, you're getting cash back for that anyway that you wouldn't have been getting back in the first place for bills you have to pay anyway. So, like I said, I know this video got long, but I definitely really do pray it was helpful for you guys and it puts you guys in that wavelength of understanding about building your own business, whatever it is. Regardless, if you're not sure what it is, make a business anyway. Figure out what it is. It has to be something that you consider legit, but at the same time, too, it doesn't have to be big. So don't get into the scope like I have to own me a storefront for it to be. No, create a business on any level you want to create. It doesn't matter if it's social media, then do it like that just for the purpose of saying you have a business so you can write off everything in your life and you get money back. This is what they don't want to teach you, but it's a very large benefit. So with that being said, post any comments below if any of you guys have any additional insight that you can apply to this and teach other people on the channel, because we are all a community here trying to help each other out. And as always, take care, be safe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.